Welcome back everyone. Let's go ahead and talk about the good old PlayStation 4 and see how it holds up in 2021. Now, what I can tell you is first of all, I love PlayStation. I love their consoles. I think the PlayStation 5 is a beautiful console. I just wish Sony's release would be a little bit better. But other than that, I think PlayStations are killing it. I love these devices and I sound like a person who's trying really hard to be a gamer. I'm going to preface this whole video. I am not a gamer at all. I don't professionally play. I don't play video games pretty much at all. But I love devices and I love these types of consoles and I love the history about them. And what's so funny is that the PlayStation 4, even the PlayStation Saga, I pretty much started my video games, life, I guess, with a PlayStation 1 and a Game Boy Advance. I love those consoles. I love Nintendo. I love Microsoft. But that PlayStation 1, playing games like Spyro the Dragon and Crash Bandicoot is super crazy. And even now, the only times I really play video games are the games that I already have downloaded on my PlayStation 4. The Spyro the Dragon trilogy is one of those games that I love playing. And I'm so glad that they eventually got, a remake of it, which happened like a year and a half ago. But with the PlayStation 4, what's so crazy is that this console actually came out in 2013. How crazy is that? That seems like forever ago. And the fact that, the PlayStation 4 was still their main console, mostly the Slim and the Pro, is still so crazy to me because this console, is pushing the age of it, but it doesn't really seem that outdated because a lot of the features that we saw with this console are still pretty much up there with some of the newer consoles. Now, I've talked about pretty much every single PlayStation console that has ever came out, and one thing that I always saw even with the PlayStation 3s is that they start off great, but then they kind of taper out. The original PlayStation 3, had all this capability, and then they kind of tapered it out with the PS3 and the Slim and the Super Slim and all that. With the PlayStation 4, it seems like all the consoles were kind of killing it. Of course, with the PS4 Slim, it was a little bit different than the Pro, but this original PlayStation 4 had so much going for it for sure. One of my favorite things about the PS4 even now, before I get too far into it, the PS4, the body of it is just so timeless. There's a lot of consoles and just a lot of devices out there. You look at it and it's already outdated. The PS4, you can look at it forever and it's going to look so beautiful for sure. Now on the front, you have the USB ports, which are great if you want to go ahead and expand the storage through the front, or if you even wanted to go ahead and connect to a controller charger, you can go ahead and do that, which is great. Now, sides really didn't have anything. You had the fans, obviously, but on the back, you had the HDMI port, which was great. You had the Ethernet ports and all that. You had extra USB ports as well. And I think the overall console of it was very predictable. It was a very good console, nothing super crazy about it. There wasn't any super crazy feature that this console had that was like a gimmick or anything. And that's why I think this console was very safe. We've seen time and time again, a console will have this crazy cool feature that is like a kind of like a gimmick, and then it kind of fades away and that whole entire console kind of just we look at the Nintendo Wii U. That was kind of like that. With this console, there wasn't anything like that, which is great. And same thing with the Xbox One. Now, I will tell you, with this Xbox One, I actually just came off playing Cyberpunk on it when the whole entire Cyberpunk saga was going on. And I was surprised by how good this console was running Cyberpunk. For this thing, for being a 2013 console, it was running it fairly well. And I think I do have some gameplay footage of it somewhere. But it was honestly a pretty decent experience. I was pretty surprised. I was expecting it to do worse, but it really wasn't. And I played Fortnite on this thing before, and I played a lot of other those heavier intensive games, and it actually runs fairly well, which again is another area where this console really kills it in. Now, I also did a PlayStation 4 versus PlayStation 5 console comparison, and this is probably one of those bigger differences between these two consoles, and it's probably the biggest change that we've seen in the PlayStation 4 saga, because we had the next generation of consoles. And I think when you look at something like the PlayStation 4, it may seem like you have an outdated console, but after comparing the two, I can definitely tell you the PlayStation 4 is still going to be, here to stay for at least another 2-3 years, in my opinion. And the majority of the reason of this is because, first of all, people are still getting their hands on the PlayStation 5s. It would not make much sense for a developer to go ahead and release a, just a game specifically for the PlayStation 5. We've seen a few, but it wouldn't make too much sense for that to happen right now. The same thing happened with the PS3 to PS4 conversion. That's why there's so many similar games for those two consoles. And the same thing with the PS1 and PS2, I'm sure. With this one, because PlayStation is just kind of messing it up a little bit in terms of the release, more and more people are having trouble actually picking up a PlayStation 5. So that's going to delay a lot of these developers to actually switch over to PlayStation 5 game development only. So they're still going to be, doing PS4 and and PS5 game releases. So even if you still own this original PlayStation 4, you're still going to be able to play a majority of those games that are still coming out probably within the next at least 2 years, maybe more, but at least the next 2 years. So that's a pretty big advantage in and of itself. And one of my favorite things about the PlayStation 4 was the fact that it was able to handle 4K resolution output. That seems like maybe like something that a lot of people got used to, but that again in and of itself is another huge plus point of this thing. The fact that it was able to handle that really future-proofed it, because nowadays we do have like 8K and like 4K at higher resolutions and frame rates, but it's still a really cool capability that we had on this device, and I think that in and of itself again is another huge asset of it. Now, funny enough, we can't hit on PlayStation 4 or any PlayStation console or any gaming console without hitting on the controller, and as I've always stated, the PlayStation 4 controller is not my favorite controller, but I think it was one of those things that, Sony kind of pushed out. It's funny, it's cool, and I like it, but again, a lot of the features, like this may have been the only gimmick feature that we've seen, and PlayStation still has adapted it over to their next console, but it's pretty much that PlayStation 3 console with that extra touch layer to the top. Now, I like this controller. I like it a lot. I like the fact that we don't have to buy, an extra set of batteries or anything like that, like how we do have to have it on the Microsoft controller. I don't know why Microsoft still does that, with the double A batteries, even for the Xbox Series S and X. We should move away from that, but they're still selling these batteries, which I don't understand. But with this one, battery intact, so we don't have to worry about that, which I'm great. Micro USB port on the back as well, which is great. And I like this controller because it lasts quite a bit of time. I like the coloring and I like all that stuff, but there's still a problem with these controllers, which is still plaguing a lot of PlayStations, and it's plaguing a lot of consoles in general, including the Nintendo Switches and the Microsoft Xboxes. And this problem is the joystick drift. Now, I talk about this a lot on my second channel. I talk about troubleshooting your PlayStation 4s and all this stuff, and this is a major problem because, to be honest, it should not be happening. For us to spend this much on a console and for us to experience these type of issues is just outrageous. So what the joystick drift is basically, and it still plagues a lot of consoles even now in 2021, basically these controllers will get a lot of dust and whatever. The mechanism of the joystick ends up messing up somehow, and the joystick will end up drifting. Now, that's probably the biggest problem with the PlayStation 4 is because these controllers, if you're buying it used, these controllers are prone to having these issues. So if you're buying a used PlayStation 4, even a brand new one, because they've been sitting around for a while, these controllers have the higher probability of actually messing up. So that's kind of a thing to keep in mind. Again, I don't want to sit here and say it's like the craziest deal ever or anything, but it is something to keep in mind. But these PlayStation 4s, other than that, besides the minor like software issues, when PlayStation is upgrading their software and there's like random like bugs and stuff, it's been a smooth experience on my end. I haven't experienced a joystick drift. I haven't experienced really any software issues, but again, it is something to kind of keep in mind. So I believe the PlayStation 4 in 2021 is still a killer console. We're still getting updates on software. Nothing really has crazy changed for the PlayStation 4 specifically in 2020 or 2021, except for the PlayStation 5 release. And I've already kind of mentioned that I said before that I wouldn't even recommend going from a PlayStation 4 to PS5 right now, or feel like you have to have the urge to go to a PS5 and like spend hours in line or pay the scalpers any extra money to have the console, mostly because a lot of the games and a lot of the features that are still being outputted for the PlayStation 5 haven't even been out and been released yet, but more so, the games that are coming out are still for both consoles. So for the next year or two, I would say at least guaranteed for the next year, but even the next 2 years, you're really not missing out on too much. So in terms of that pretty much covers it up. If you guys have any other questions or anything like that, let me know in the comment section below. Check out the other links down in the description as well. My Twitter, my Instagram, my other channels. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.